Hey LX Army, and welcome back. Today is the final installment of our current series, Dominance and Dog Training, where we've been getting to the root of submissive entitlement and tackling some of the most common challenges to DS dynamics. So if you missed any part of this series, you can find all the links in this video's description below. But as a quick recap, here are the principles we covered last week. How to build submissive devotion, how to safely and effectively modify your submissive's behavior, and how to incentivize ongoing obedience. Today, we're jumping back into training strategy, starting with safely pushing your submissive's limits. So many of my dominant coaching clients have significant concerns about this, and for good reason. You know, hard limits are boundaries that we do not violate. But edge play and soft limits have a lot of gray areas. There are a lot of variables and unknowns. As such, there is more risk involved when you're trying to safely and appropriately guide your submissive into exciting new territory. And the key here is not necessarily to go slow and over-explain, but to consistently praise and encourage during the process, all right? Now, I say this because sometimes, even if you as the dominant set out to gently push a soft limit or take a baby step into a new type of play, it will feel strong and significant to your submissive, all right? Now, the most recent example with Jamie was my last trip to California. Now, as most of you know, Jamie is my ESA, and he goes everywhere with me, he travels with me, and he's an awesome traveler. But this time around, the airlines created a new rule that disallows the ESA label, so all animals are treated under pet regulations, which means Jamie needed to be stuffed in a crate and put under my seat for the entire flight. And he's used to flying, like, on my lap. He's used to traveling with me on my lap, snugged up with mom, right? So this baby is under the seat in his crate, and the rumblings of the plane during takeoff and landing were super unsettling, right? He's hearing it, he's feeling it because he's on the floor, and this baby was scratching to get out. He was whining to me. He was expressing his displeasure with the situation. He was expressing that he had reached his limit and he wanted out. I wasn't allowed to do that. I wasn't allowed to respond to that. He had to push through the displeasure. He had to tough it out. And as his owner, it was my responsibility to help him do that. So what did I do? To calm him, to soothe him, to try to get him to settle, I praise him. You're doing so good, baby. You got this. You're such a good boy. I did that throughout the flight as I comforted him, offered him reassurance. It's okay, baby. Everything's okay. I'm right here with you. It's okay. And because I knew he was at his limit, I regularly monitored him and promoted rest. So I'd occasionally reach my hand in the crate to check his temperature, pet him, let him gnaw on my hand to release some anxious energy. If he felt too hot, I'd turn the AC on him, focus it on him. To whatever extent I could meet his physical needs and promote rest in that situation, I did it. But here's something you need to be aware of, dominance. When you push soft limits and guide your submissive into new or more intense play, you will likely encounter a crash or subdrop, which is the physical and emotional aftermath of subspace. And however high you rise is typically how hard you will fall. And this is not something to be intimidated by, dominance. This is just something to be aware of and to mindfully navigate. This actually happened with Jamie after we got home from this last California trip. On the trip, there were a number of days where he was at the Airbnb for extended bouts. You know, after a super stressful travel to California, getting stranded in Dallas overnight without luggage or his prescription food, it was a mess. He is in a new place. After all that stress, he's in a new place, all alone. Now, he had a nanny cam and beds and toys and food and water, and all of his needs were met, and he was in a safe, secure place. But this was still a push for him, a stretch for him. This was still a huge, emotionally draining adjustment to his regular routine, where we're together all the time. And he's very familiar with his surroundings, you know? So when we got home, he was definitely crashing. He was incredibly clingy. He would freeze on walks. If he got too far ahead of me, he'd freeze and look back and start getting anxious, which he never ever does. He's usually a wild little adventurer. He had shaking spells. Here I'm calling the emergency room. Is he in pain? What's going on? He was just crashing. He had big emotions that needed to be processed. And it was my responsibility as his owner to guide him through that crash. Now, here's the thing, dominance, and this is the important point that I really, really hope that just sets you free. While he's experiencing this crash, I didn't take on any shame. I didn't take on any guilt because I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything to violate him or abuse him. But yeah, his limits were pushed and he needed to process it. All right? So that's why I focused so much on physical touch and quality time with him. It was constant for about a week after we got home. If he wanted snugs, I dropped everything to burrito baby him and hold him. If he wanted to climb on my shoulders like my own little puppy scarf, I would let him. If that child wanted to sit on my lap while I peed, I let him. Okay? Now, I didn't allow him to break any of our pre-existing rules, nor did I allow him to abandon our normal routine, because that consistency in the routine is super helpful for getting grounded again. But I did absolutely indulge his need for physical touch, comfort, reassurance, and I gave him definitely more leniency in his reaction time, his moods, and his emotional response. For a short season. Do not let the submissive weaponize this, all right? And it's important to note here that the manner of delivery is so important, dominance. This comfort, this reassurance, this physical touch and quality time should be executed with just increased levels of softness and gentleness, okay? Even if you're already a soft dom or a caregiver, you can get softer, okay? But this is the important counter to this. Softness does not mean you're a pushover or passive. Soft does not mean pushover or passive. Dominance, continue to reinforce the rules. Continue to reinforce the boundaries. Do not let your submissive go into this victimized territory and stay there. But gentleness in demonstration and tenderness in tone is super helpful at regulating the nervous system and communicating to the submissive subconscious that they're safe and they can get out of a dysregulated state of hyper or hypoarousal. So, dominance, have you faced any of these challenges in your dynamic? And if so, has this series helped you out? I hope so. Comment below and let me know. And for all the companion resources you need to tackle the biggest obstacles in your power exchange dynamic, don't miss my new submissive training bundle on Patreon. This resource contains 8 exclusive downloads, including 3 brand new guides: a dominance guide to deepen devotion, a dominance guide to tackling trauma triggers, and 8 dog training techniques for effective behavior modification. And these will help you navigate submissive training, deepen devotion, and dominate some of the biggest dynamic killers. Just go over to patreon.com/LXerotica to get instant access to this new bundle.